Hola mis estudiantes, bienvenido a Build a Website from Scratch with HTML and CSS. This video is called Get Your Hands Dirty. You know what this video is about. We put everything we've learned so far from this section into a little mini website and put our skills to practice. Luckily this time we have some more skills and some tools in our tool belt so we can make a nicer looking website, a kind of a more beautiful example. So first things first, open up that code editor and create a new file called index.html. In your index file, add your HTML5 doc type and the basic page structure. If you're using Coda 2, you can use a couple of keyboard shortcuts to get that done faster. However, I do recommend that you just type them out by hand so you can commit them to muscle memory and practice them. But this is how you do that if you're using Coda 2. HTML5 doc type, basic page, boom, done. All right, so the title of this will be Get Your Hands Dirty. Let's link up our style sheet, which will be called, dirty.css. Rel will be style sheet. And let's just while we're doing this, create a CSS file called dirty.css. I've already done that, but just create a new CSS file called dirty.css and link it up in your link in the header right here. All right, let's code out some HTML. And your body tag, start off by adding a div and give it the ID of container. We're going to wrap everything we code in a container. All right, so in your container, let's actually add an end comment here so we know that this is the end div for the container because we're going to have a lot of HTML in between here. Start off by adding a div and give it the ID of header. And let's just keep going with the structure here. Add another div. Give it the class of blog-post. Copy that and paste it one more time because we're going to have two blog post examples here. And then div, give it the ID of footer. All right, so let's add some HTML within these tags here. So level 1 heading, let's say welcome to my website. A paragraph tag right here after your level 1 heading. And let's say this is my minimalist website with very little info. At least it's beautiful. All right, give this paragraph tag the class of lead because we're going to do something in CSS later with that. Level 2 heading in your first blog post, say blog post title. Let's put a paragraph tag here and say, actually, I'm just going to put some lorem ipsum text here. Lorem ipsum is just filler text. You've probably seen it on some websites, but it's basically just filler text. It's just like kind of Latin type stuff, so you can just have real looking sentences, but without actually having real copy. You can go to a couple websites to get lorem ipsum to add to your websites if you're just needing some filler text before you have real copy. One of them is called lipsum.com for lorem ipsum. And you could just generate your lorem ipsum right here. You could choose how many paragraphs or words you want here. You could say one paragraph, generate lorem ipsum, and then you could just copy and paste the lorem ipsum they give you here. Just copy a couple sentences, or alternatively, you can use something called hipster ipsum. It's hipsteripsum.me, and it just generates lorem ipsum, but with like funny hipster style language, such as bicycle rights, literally salvage Banksy, tote bag, Tumblr, mumblecore. All this kind of funny stuff. So you can use this using kind of real words, and it's kind of funny too. So back to our code editor. Add your lorem ipsum in your blog post paragraph tag here. Let's add an M tag. Within the M tag, let's just say posted by and then your name. And let's wrap your name in a strong tag. So copy this blog post content and post it in the other blog post because it's going to be the same. And in the footer, let's add a level 3 heading and say, thanks for visiting. And put a paragraph tag. And let's do copyright 2013 and save that. Okay, so here is our semantic HTML. And let's just check it out in our browser just to see what it looks like. Okay, so here's just your plain old HTML. It's semantic, but to be honest, it's incredibly ugly and nobody wants their website to look like this. So let's make it look awesome. Let's take it a step further with everything we've learned so far with our ID selectors, class selectors, grouping selectors, descendant selectors, everything like that. And let's make this look super good. Okay, so in your dirty.css, let's start by just giving a comment up at the top here. And let's say custom CSS for get your hands dirty. And let's just start off with a really simple basic CSS margin and padding reset. So margin 0, padding 0. So this asterisk thing is it selects everything, all elements in the HTML, and we're just going to have margin padding 0, both of them. And let's start with the body. And let's say the background, triple E, light gray. Color is going to be 333, dark gray. Font family, we want it to be Helvetica, Arial, and sans serif. Font size, 14 pixels will be the base font size for the whole body. So save that and let's just check it out. So everything's just kind of cleaned up, just a little mini cleanup. We have no margin and padding on any of the elements. It's all just shoved up in the top right or top left here. We have our Helvetica. Everything is 14 pixels. Except for the headings, because they're using, I believe, their default styles in this browser at least are using M's, so it's actually going to be larger than the paragraph tags. You can set that by selecting in your CSS all with a grouping selector, actually, level H1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and say font size 14, and then they'll all go to font size 14. But I'm just going to leave them with the browser defaults because they're okay with me. In this case, and the color is a dark gray, the background is a light gray. Everything looks good so far, so let's keep going. Let's select that container using an ID selector. Remember the container that's wrapping everything. Let's give it a width of 700 pixels because I don't want it to go the full width of the browser, because your browser could be like 2,000 pixels wide or more, and that's just going to look crazy and stupid because it's just super wide and it won't look as good. So 700 pixels wide for your container. Header. And we're going to select footer as well because they're going to have similar styles. Background, 333. Color, triple F for just flat white. Padding, 30 pixels. We want padding inside the box, 30 pixels. On the top, right, bottom, and left. We'll get into the box model in the next section. You might be a little confused with how margin and padding works, but don't worry because we're going to get into that in a upcoming lecture. So just kind of follow along for now. Margin will be 10 pixels, meaning 10 pixels on the top, right, bottom, and left. And save that. Let's just check it out, see what it looks like. So there we go, heading and footing. You can see them here. And if I expand my browser, it will stay 700 pixels. That's kind of the how large I want or how wide I want the website to be in the container. And so it's just going to be 700 pixels. You can see the padding inside the box here. It's 30 pixels on the top, right, bottom, and left. And it's got 10 pixels on the top, right, bottom, and left for the margin. Same with the footer. Okay, and let's go back to our CSS. Let's move on and just select, with an ID selector, the footer. And let's say text align center and font size 12 pixels. If I save that, everything should follow suit there. The heading and the paragraph, they went down in font size and it's all centered. Looks good. All right, let's use a CSS class selector, selecting the lead. Remember the paragraph with the class of lead? We're going to make the font size of that 18 pixels. We're going to make it larger than the default. We want it to stand out in the header a little more. So there we go. This is my minimalist website, and this is the paragraph with the class of lead, and it's bigger than just the basic paragraphs throughout the website. Looks good. Let's add another class selector, blog post. And let's say background, triple F. We want it to be flat white. Padding, 30 pixels. Margin, 0, 10 pixels, and 10 pixels. Okay, let me just explain what this is if you still quite haven't grasped how this works yet. So 0, if there's 3 values, 0, it always starts with the top. So this is 0 pixels on the top, 10 pixels on the right, 10 pixels on the bottom. But because I haven't specified the last value, this means that the right and the left are the same. So instead of writing this, 0, 10, 10, 10, I can remove the last one, which is left, and just leave it so it mirrors what the right is. So 0, 10, 10. Save that and let's check it out. So there are the blog posts. You can see here that it has some padding inside the box to give it some breathing room, and margin on the outside. So 0 on the top because it already has spacing between these two elements from the margin in the header. 10 on the right and left, 10 pixels here, 10 pixels here, and 10 pixels on the bottom. And the reason why I wanted 0 on the top is because if I have 10 pixels of margin after this box right here, but I also have 10 pixels on the top, that means there's going to be 20 pixels in between these two. And I actually only want it to be 10 pixels in between them. Because this already has margin from this element, the header has 10 pixels on the bottom, I don't need to add 10 pixels to the top of this blog post because it already is spaced out quite nicely. And therefore, this one works out good as well because it's getting 10 pixels of margin from the bottom of this box. And then so on and so forth. There's 10 pixels on the bottom here, and it looks all good. All right. So, back to your CSS. Let's do a grouping selector. Level 1 heading, level 2 heading, level 3 heading. I want them to be the color of ED 7000, which will be kind of like a dark orange kind of color. All right, let's do another grouping selector, but it's going to be a descendant grouping selector, so it's a little bit more complicated. Not really, but I think you can follow along here pretty well. So blog post, level 2 heading. So I want to select the level 2 heading within the blog posts, but I also want the blog post paragraph to have the same styles. So you can see here this is a descendant selector, and so is this. Oh, I need to add the little dot there, the period, to be a class. So this is a descendant selector, and this is a descendant selector, but they're separated by a comma, which means that it's also a grouping selector. And I'm going to say margin bottom 10 pixels. So I want the H2 and the P in the blog posts to have the same margin on the bottom. And you can see that here. So the level 2 heading has 10 pixels on the bottom, and the paragraph has 10 pixels on the bottom. So that's how I did that, and you can see this one also reflected those changes. Looks good. All right, and the last style we're going to add is blog post M, so just a descendant selector. So I'm going to select the emphasis tag in the blog posts and say color CCC. That's going to be kind of a light gray. And there we go. So here is our mini website. We have the header and the footer looking similar with a few extra styles that are different in the header. We have the blog posts that look the same because we used classes. We did a little extra styling in here. The CSS, we used our ID selectors, we used grouping selectors, we used class selectors, more grouping selectors, descendant selectors, and grouping selectors mixed together. And we just put all that into practice and actually made what kind of looks more like a normal website, because up to this point we've kind of been making funny things and they don't actually look that cool. It was just for practice, but now we've actually been making something that looks more or less like a real website, and you can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to coding and designing websites. This looks much better than what we've done. You can see a structure. It kind of looks like a little blog, and you did it all by yourself with a little bit of assistance, but that's really all it takes, just a little bit of CSS and HTML, and you can make a pretty nice looking site. So look forward to the next section. We're going to dive even deeper into CSS, and it's going to be even more powerful, and you're going to have more tools for your tool belt so that you can be equipped to be an awesome web designer. See you there, my friend.